Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Shtotadashata Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Drishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swamin Iti Namine. Okay. Oh, this is dead. Yeah. It was on. It was on. Okay. If you think, yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Which way is it? This way? This way. Yeah, this way. Today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16. Chapter 16 is titled Jayan Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. Text numbers 33 through 35. So first we can do the word for word. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
You can adjust it in such a way that you're not blowing air into the mic.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Text number 33, word for word. Tao
Tao
tu
Tu
Girvanar
Vanar
Dustarat Harilokataha
Lokataha
Hatashriyau
Tashriyau
Brahmashapat
Mashapat
Abhutam
Bhutam
Vigatasmayo
Vigatasmayo
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao Dustaradhari Lokataha Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad Abhutam Vigatasmayo Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao Dustaradhari Lokataha Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad Abhutang Vigatasmayo Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao Dustaradhari Lokataha Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad Abhutang Vigatasmayo. Please repeat.
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Dustaradhari Lokataha
Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad Bhutam Vigatasmayo.
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Dustaradhari Lokataha
Dhari Lokataha
Shriyau Brahmashapad
Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad
Abhutam Vigatasmayo
Bhutam Vigatasmayo.
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Dustaradhari Lokataha
Dustaradhari Lokataha
Shriyau Brahmashapad
Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad
Bhutam Vigatasmayo
Abhutang Vigatasmayo.
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Tau tu Girvana Rishabhao
Dustaradhari Lokataha
Dustaradhari Lokataha
Shriyau Brahmashapad
Hata Shriyau Brahmashapad
Bhutam Vigatasmayo
Abhutang Vigatasmayo. Okay. Synonyms. Tao,
Tau,
those two gatekeepers.
those two gatekeepers.
Tu, but.
But
Girvana Rishabhao,
Girvana Rishabhao,
the best of the demigods.
best of the demigods.
Dustarat,
Dustarat,
unable to be avoided.
unable to be avoided.
Harilokataha,
Lokataha,
from Vaikuntha, the abode of Lord Hari.
from Vaikuntha, the Lord.
Hata Shriyao,
Shriyo,
diminished in beauty and luster.
diminished in beauty and luster.
Brahmashapat,
Shapat,
from the curse of a Brahmana.
from the curse of Brahma.
Abhutang,
Bhutam,
Abhutam,
Bhutam,
became.
became.
Vigatasmayo,
Tasmayo,
morose. Translation and purport. So I'm going to read translation of text 33, 34, and 35, and then there's a purport, verse 35. But those two gatekeepers, the best of the demigods, their beauty and luster, diminished by the curse of the Brahmanas, became morose and fell from Vaikuntha, the abode of the Supreme Lord. Text 34. Tada Vaikuntha Dhishanat Tayor Nipatamanayoho Hahakaro Mahanasid Vimana Grieshu Putrakaha. Then as Jai and Vijay fell from the Lord's abode, a great roar of disappointment arose from all the demigods who were sitting in their splendid airplanes. Text 35. Tav eva hyadhuna praptao parshada pravaro harehe ditir jathara nirvishtam kashyapam teja ulbanam. Lord Brahma continued, those two principal doorkeepers of the personality of Godhead have now entered the womb of Diti, the powerful semen of Kashyapa Muni having covered them. Purport. Here it is clear proof of how a living entity coming originally from Vaikuntha Loka is encaged in material elements. The living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father, which is injected within the womb of a mother, and with the help of the mother's emulsified ovum, the living entity grows a particular type of body. In this connection, it is to be remembered that the mind of Kashyapa Muni was not in order when he conceived the two sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Therefore, the semen he discharged was simultaneously extremely powerful and mixed with a quality of anger. It is to be concluded that while conceiving a child, one's mind must be very sober and devotional. For this purpose, the Garbhadhana Samskara is recommended in the Vedic scriptures. If the mind of a father is not sober, the semen discharged will not be very good. Thus, the living entity, wrapped in the matter produced from the father and mother, will be demoniac, like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. The conditions of conception are to be carefully studied. This is a very great science. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakrurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gada Mahyam Darati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitangscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we all know the difference between Mahamaya and Yogamaya. So there are two different kinds of potencies of the Supreme Lord that cover the living entity in different ways. So, Maya, one definition is that which is not, or illusion. In another understanding, we can see that Maya is simply that which is one of the potencies of the Lord that covers the living entity. So actually the living entity is always covered, either under the direct shelter of the Supreme Lord, which is known as the internal energy, or the living entity is covered by the external energy, which is the indirect energy of the Supreme Lord, or the indirect influence of the Supreme Lord. His deputed energies that he creates to facilitate the bewilderment and illusion of the living entities. So Mahamaya obviously is that covering which puts the living entities into the illusion of thinking that they belong to this material world, that they are of this material world. And Yogamaya is that potency which facilitates the living entities in their identity as servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the living entity, who we are, the spirit soul, is also known as Tatashta Shakti, which means the marginal energy. So we can either be under the influence of the internal or external energies, but we're going to be under the influence of one of these no matter what. So, in one sense, we could say that Yogamaya means to be in some sort of illusion, thinking oneself greater than the Supreme Lord. For instance, Mother Yashoda, she's like Krishna's authority. She plays as Krishna's mother. So this is illusory in the sense that actually Krishna is supreme, but in another sense, the reality is that Mother Yashoda is the mother of Krishna, because Krishna wants her like that. Krishna wants her to have an authoritative position over him as his mother. And so we could say Yogamaya is some kind of illusion, but in the actual sense, Yogamaya is reality. That Yogamaya facilitates whatever kind of relationship we have with the Supreme Lord and allows us to act in that way in relationship with Krishna. And that is our real identity, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, Krishner Svarupoi, or Jiver Svarupoi, Krishner Nityadas. That the living entity in actuality is an eternal servant of Krishna. So to be under the potency, the shelter of Yogamaya, is our real natural position. And Mahamaya is actually what is illusion. So we're either under Yogamaya or we're under Mahamaya. We're either in reality or we're in illusion. So that is the reality of the situation. This is the difference between Mahamaya and Yogamaya. And so Jai and Vijay, they were cursed by the 4 Kumaras, and thus they were sent to the material world by the Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord wanted to perform his pastimes in the Virya rasa, which means the heroic rasa. So the Supreme Lord, he has this desire to be the hero and save the heroine. And so the Supreme Lord incarnates as Lord Ramachandra, and then his heroine is Sita Devi, and then etc. There's more and more pastimes unlimited pastimes the Supreme Lord performs as the hero. So because the Supreme Lord likes to enjoy in this kind of mood of being a fighter, a great hero, he incarnates in this material world, and sometimes he sends his devotees to facilitate these pastimes and act as demons. So this was the case with Jai and Vijay. They're devotees of the Lord, the pure devotees serving in Vaikuntha, and they get sent to this material world to be demons. And while they're in this material world, they're thinking, I am Hiranyaksha, I am Hiranyakashipu, I am Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Shishupal, Dantavakra. So they're thinking they're these demons. And one may ask, so they're coming to the material world and they're demons, so are they in Mahamaya or Yogamaya? One may wonder this, because we understand Yogamaya usually means we're in the spiritual world. We're Krishna's mother, we're Krishna's friend, or Krishna's gopi, whatever Krishna's servant, whatever relationship we may have with Krishna. We understand that pure relationship in the spiritual world is when we're under Yogamaya. But in this case, it's a little tricky because Jai and Vijay, they're in this material world and they're demons. So to be a demon in this material world, is that their eternal relationship with Krishna? No, but they are in fact under Yogamaya, not Mahamaya, because they come for the purpose of facilitating the Supreme Lord's pastimes. So their purpose, the reason they are demons, the reason why they're covered over by this demoniac body that they have, is for the direct facilitation of the Lord's pastimes. So their very reason for being here in this material world is due directly to the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. Whereas we see the external energy of the Supreme Lord, when one is under that potency, then the reason they take birth in this material world is just because of their guna and karma, or their nonsense, or their pious activities. Ultimately, it's all nonsense, whatever people perform in this material world. So when we perform activities in this material world, we make some action, and there's a certain reaction for that. And whatever body we have, that's the qualities we have. So this is our guna and karma in the material world. But this is not the case with Jaya and Vijay. So they're in fact under the Yoga Maya potency. Even though they're demons, big demons, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, they're in Yoga Maya. And Srila Prabhupada confirms this actually in Canto 7, Canto 7, Chapter 1, Text 35. Narada Muni clarifies this because Yudhishthira Maharaj asks him this question. Or maybe not this exact question. He asks why Jaya and Vijay fell from the spiritual world. But Srila Prabhupada says in the purport to this verse, the second sentence or so, from authoritative sources it can be discerned that associates of Lord Vishnu who descend from Vaikuntha do not actually fall. They come with the purpose of fulfilling the desire of the Lord, and their descent to this material world is comparable to that of the Lord. The Lord comes to this material world through the agency of his internal potency. And similarly, when a devotee or associate of the Lord descends to this material world, he does so through the action of the supreme energy. Any pastime conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is an arrangement by Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. Therefore, it is to be understood that when Jaya and Vijay descended to this material world, they came because there was something to be done for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, it is a fact that no one falls from Vaikuntha. So, it is a fact that Jaya and Vijay, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Dantavakra, Shishupal, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, they're in Yoga Maya actually. So, Jaya and Vijay, when they got cursed, and they're coming down to the material world, they became morose. So you may ask the question, if they're in Yoga Maya, why are they morose? Because it may seem like, that's a symptom of someone in Mahamaya, right? Like, Krishna wants them to do something, devotees want them to do something, they become morose, upset. Or moroseness in general is, we think of as a quality of this material world, right? How we lament because we don't have exactly what we want. So Jaya and Vijay are lamenting here. They're morose. So how could they be morose in Yoga Maya? Well, Srimati Radharani is also morose in Yoga Maya because she's feeling intense separation from Krishna. And in the 8th verse of the Shikrashtakam, Ashlishyava Badaratang Pinashtumam Adarshanan Marmahatam Karotuva Yatha Tata Vavidadhatu Lampato Mat Prananatas tu se eva naparaha. Let Krishna tightly embrace me, or trample me, or not be present before me, making me broken-hearted. And whatever he does, he can do what he likes. Even though he's a dubachi, he's a lampat, he can do whatever he likes because he's my Lord. So this verse is composed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Radharani herself, none different. But this is the mood of devotees, that even though, they may not exactly get what they want, they're willing to do they're willing to do anything and everything for the Supreme Lord. So Jaya and Vijay, they're morose, so maybe we can assume that they maybe would prefer to be gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. But their real desire actually is just to be servants of Krishna. That's their real intention only. And so when they came to this material world, they had no hang-ups. Krishna wanted them to come, they did not argue. They just accepted it as their duty. They weren't very happy because they maybe preferred in Vaikuntha Loka. But this doesn't matter to them, their own happiness and distress. This does not matter to the residents of Vaikuntha Loka. So Jai and Vijay, they came down to the material world, even though they didn't want to, but it's their real pleasure to just serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the devotee is not bewildered by happiness and distress, right? So, similarly, Daruka, when he was fanning Krishna, he was feeling intense ecstasy, but he didn't care for this ecstasy. He just wanted to serve the Lord. So when he started to shiver in ecstasy and the chamara was, then he enough of this ecstasy, let me just do my service. So devotees, they don't necessarily care for their own happiness and distress, but they just want to serve the Supreme Lord in whichever way He wants. So Jai and Vijay, they're morose coming to this material world. And in the next verse it says that the demigods are also morose when they come. When Jai and Vijay fell from the Lord's abode, a great roar of disappointment arose from all the demigods who were sitting in their splendid airplanes. So they're thinking, oh my God, these demons, our material enjoyment is finished. This is big demons coming to the material world. And there's a lot, as we later hear in the pastimes, the demigods go through so much hell. Hiranyakashipu totally just kicks them out of their positions and takes over the material world. And then Ravana, he employs all the demigods as his menial servants. So they go through so much difficulty because of these demons. So what's the difference between the lamentation of Jai and Vijay and the lamentation of the demigods? Well, we could say that Jai and Vijay, they're in Yoga Maya, and the demigods, for the most part, they're in Maha Maya, because demigods have material desires. They enjoy great material opulence. And so Jai and Vijay, they're morose because, they're morose because they prefer a different spiritual position, but they're in Yoga Maya, whereas the demigods, they're morose because of their intense desires for material enjoyment, which will be interrupted. And the happiness and distress of the demigods is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The demigods, they're in, whoever's in this material world, they're in the mixed modes of material nature. As we read that verse in the 14th chapter that describes that the modes, they're always in competition with one another. Like the mode of goodness sometimes surpasses passion. Passion sometimes surpasses goodness and ignorance, etc. So the modes are always in competition with each other. So nobody in this material world, besides the pure devotees which come from Vaikuntha directly, is purely in the mode of goodness or passion or pure goodness or any of these. It's a mix of the modes. So the demigods, they're predominantly in the mode of goodness because they've regulated themselves to such an extent that they can attain such exalted positions. But they're heavily in the mode of passion also, because they have intense desire for material enjoyment, which is why they took birth as demigods in the first place. The 6th verse of the 14th chapter in Bhagavad Gita reads, Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena badhnati jnana sangena chanagha. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. And happiness in this material world, Srila Prabhupada sometimes phrased as a false sense of happiness. So this happiness is just the satisfaction of one's material senses, but that's actually a false sense of happiness. This is not real happiness. Happiness is the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the mode of passion is then described in text 7. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tanibadhnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. So we can easily understand that the demigods are bound to material fruitive actions, performing so much material duties, enjoying so many heavenly opulences. And so the demigods are in Mahamaya, and Jaya and Vijaya are in Yogamaya. So they're both unhappy when Jaya and Vijaya come down, but there's a big difference there. So text 35 of today's verses. Lord Brahma continued, those two principal doorkeepers of the personality of Godhead have now entered the womb of Diti, the powerful semen of Kashyapa Muni having covered them. Here is clear proof of how a living entity coming originally from Vaikuntha Loka is encaged in material elements. The living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father, which is injected within the womb of a mother, and with the help of the mother's emulsified ovum, the living entity grows a particular type of body. So, the common debate, did the jiva fall from the spiritual world or not? Clearly, Srila Prabhupada says here, this is clear proof of how a living entity coming originally from Vaikuntha Loka is encaged in material elements. So it is a fact that the living entity falls from the spiritual world and is then encaged in a material body. It's a straight up fact. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he's explaining, he's comparing how Jaya and Vijaya came from the spiritual world. He's comparing that to how a conditioned living entity gets entrapped in the spiritual world. So obviously, as we've discussed, Jaya and Vijaya, they're in Yogamaya, and us in the material world, we're in Mahamaya. So there's a gulf of difference, but still we can learn from these pastimes. So normally we think of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu as big, great demons. And colloquially, we refer to them as demons, and we don't want to imbibe their qualities. But in actuality, they're pure devotees. So we can understand that the purpose of the Bhagavatam, one purpose of the Bhagavatam, one purpose of the Lord's descent and the descent of his devotees is simply to teach us. So Srila Prabhupada here, he's drawing this teaching from this pastime of Jaya and Vijaya falling from the material world and saying, so yes, similarly, we fall from the material world and we get these material bodies. As explained in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, texts 8 and 9, Sharira yadavapnoti yatchap yutkramatishvaraha grihitvaitami sanyati vayugandhan ivashayat. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Shrotram chakhu sparshanam cha rasanam granam eva cha adhikhtaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So, as we've discussed earlier, due to our guna and karma, we've attained these bodies. Our gross body, which is made of the gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, as well as these subtle material elements comprised of the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego. So all these elements combine together in a very particular way, which is simply, it all comes from the three modes of material nature, actually, the very subtle three modes of material nature. They mix and mingle and match, and then it becomes these 8 elements that we've just listed. And then those 8 elements, they mix in all sorts of varieties of ways to create everything we see in this material world. But everything is simply a mixture of the modes of material nature. But it's infinitely elaborate. You know, with mundane equations, we cannot figure out how 3 combinations of just 3 things can come into absolutely infinite combinations. This is not possible as a material calculation. But spiritually we understand that the energy of the Supreme Lord is unlimited. And so even though there's only 3 modes of material nature, there's infinite things that can come from that. So there's infinite things that can come out of the 3 modes of material nature, including all these bodies we've acquired. And Krishna's arranged it so that we acquire these bodies according to our desire and according to our qualification. And whatever activities we've performed in this material world, it's made impressions on our mind. Whatever we do physically to our bodies, there's a reaction for that. If you spend your whole life working out, you'll be buff and cut and fit. Like that, it's just simple laws of nature. There's actions and reactions. So it works on a very cosmic level, which we cannot understand. As in fact, everything works on such a cosmic level. You know, the scientists, they thought that the single cell organism was very simple. You know, one cell, there's maybe a few components, we can work it out. In a few years we'll be able to replicate it. But if you look under a microscope with infinite strength, hypothetically, the more and more you zoom in, the more and more complex it gets. It's cosmic, it's infinitely complex, as everything in this material world is. It's just an infinite mixture of the modes of material nature. If we, the more and more we think about it, we just get confused and bewildered because of our limited intelligence. But also it's glorious that we could see the potency and wonder of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how He can create such beautiful and complex things. In this connection, it is to be remembered that the mind of Kashyapa Muni was not in order when he conceived the 2 sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Therefore the semen he discharged was simultaneously extremely powerful and mixed with a quality of anger. So, we could similarly see how in today's society, Varna Sankara is very prevalent. How people don't even intend to have children sometimes. Just saying that, I was born over a bottle of whiskey on a Saturday night, which is a common story, unfortunately. How people have absolutely no control of their senses and they just have sex like animals. And then they produce kids like animals, and the kids are animals themselves, and it just perpetuates like this. So this is the condition of today's modern society. It's only Lord Chaitanya's mercy that we've taken up this process of Krishna consciousness and become self-controlled, because otherwise we have practical experience that it's not possible for us. Radhanath Maharaj, he said something along the lines of, the moment I start thinking myself a great saint, because I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for 50 years, all I have to do is remember what I did 51 years ago. So similarly, we may get puffed up sometimes thinking, oh, I'm a devotee, I'm nice and pukka, I'm very regulated, practicing Krishna consciousness. But we just remember what we were doing right before. We can understand our real position and the real position of Lord Chaitanya and our relationship to that, how we're only here by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But yeah, we can see in ourselves, in the people around us, in Kali Yuga, that we're all Varna Sankara, or unwanted progeny, because actually these kind of human beings have no good influence in the world. We can see all the kinds of pollution going on in the world. People are simply living for sense gratification at the expense of Mother Earth. And it's simply useless. It's simply detrimental. These people's very existence is a burden. So do we want to be like that? Do we want our existence to be a burden? No, we don't want to do that. So we should serve Krishna and try to live naturally in accordance with the laws Krishna has set, in accordance with the way Mother Earth regulates herself. Live according to that, not living in a way which is against that. So Varna Sankara is produced due to a lack of sense control of the people begetting children, and one must control their senses in order to be successful in life, to be successful in Krishna consciousness. We need to control our senses. And one big thing we need to control is anger. In the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's said like that: lust, greed, and anger. One must control these things. These are demoniac things: lust, greed, and anger. And if we can control these things nicely, we can come more to the mode of goodness, and then from the mode of goodness, practice pure devotional service. But we must control our anger. So anger is in the mode of ignorance. And Shiva, Lord Shiva, is the demigod, the presiding deity, presiding over the mode of ignorance. And we could see he's like the supreme. Krishna is the supreme of everything, but besides Krishna, Shiva is the supreme angry, Rudra. He completely annihilates this material world when it's time. He gets angry, he does his Tandava dance, and he beats on his drum, and the whole thing just crashes and burns, fires and floods, and everything just completely wrecks. So this is Lord Shiva's potency, given to him by the Supreme Lord. And we can understand that this is a destructive force, this anger. And we see that in, this whatever war going on now. It's simply people getting angry at each other and causing destruction. There's simply an illusion, and we want our own sense gratification, therefore we subject others to whatever is necessary for that. And thus we see the condition of the world today, people just completely killing each other, no sense of what's right and wrong, just anger, selfishness like that. So we need to control anger. Now, there's also spiritual anger. So we're not dry renunciates. We don't simply want to give up everything. We don't want to completely give up anger. Because actually, everything is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we shouldn't feel repulsed to anything, in the sense that everything is Krishna's energy in one sense. Now, anger can be employed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One example is how the spiritual master, he gets heavy. We see Srila Prabhupada. You look at his debates, his talks with all the scientists, government officials, all these kind of people. In most of them, he's fierce. He's just like fighting them. He's angry. We understand this is not a bad quality. He's doing this out of service to Krishna. People have misconceptions. They're leading other people in the wrong direction. Therefore, some anger is required. Violence is required to meet violence. So Srila Prabhupada, he was very angry with these scientists, constantly calling them rascals. There's a big list. This is a hog society, a dog society, a camel society, etc., etc. There's unlimited, some even like kind of funny, profane ones. The anger is employed in the service of Krishna to make a point come across. And so the spiritual master is angry like that. The spiritual master also chastises his disciples, which is a form of anger. And the disciples should not be angry towards the spiritual master. This only should work one way. So the spiritual master can be angry at the disciples, but the disciples shouldn't be angry back. There's a verse, King Brunjana is speaking to his wife. When a master chastises his servant, the servant should accept this as great mercy. One who gets angry must be very foolish not to know that such is the duty of his friend. So this is coming from the Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 26, Text 22. So it's the duty of the spiritual master to be angry at his disciples. And the disciples should take it as their spiritual duty to humbly accept that chastisement. So, anger can be employed in the service of Krishna in all sorts of ways. As Krishna was enticing Arjuna to get angry to fight on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So obviously we're not simply wanting to give up anger. We want to employ anger in the service of Krishna, but we should still discern within ourselves the anger we have? Is it material or is it spiritual? Simply because we're chanting 16 rounds doesn't mean that anything we do is spiritual. That's something very important we need to understand. We shouldn't feel so puffed up as to think that I'm doing my service, I'm chanting 16 rounds, I'm following the 4 regulative principles, I'm a devotee, therefore I can basically do whatever I want as long as I chant my 16 rounds and follow the regulative principles. Anything else is okay. But this is not the case. We should always discern ourselves because Maya is very tricky. She can creep in very, very swiftly and take us into illusion. So, especially being angry at devotees. Sometimes we get angry at each other, why is this dude sleeping too much? Why are you eating too much? You're moted out. Fix yourself. Maybe some anger in an encouraging way, or anger which is employed, felt and then, employed to encourage others, help them progress in Krishna consciousness. But anger also may come, this is my service, why are you stepping on my feet? Get out of my way, you're making it difficult for me, don't correct me. These kind of angry feelings can come in us. And we should be very careful. Sometimes we need to be angry for our service, but we shouldn't let this anger overtake us. One symptom of being angry in a healthy way is that we're able to regulate it. We're able to employ anger when we want, and we're able to hamper it when it's not beneficial, right? So, in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's described we should only say things which are beneficial, pleasing, etc. But bottom line is we should only do what's beneficial. So we should, if we're feeling angry, we can analyze, if I yell at this person, if I try to correct him, whatever it is, what effect will it have? Will it be a good effect or a bad effect? One who has no control of their senses will just immediately go off, get angry, chastise, yell, and then may cause destruction. But an intelligent person who is angry on the spiritual platform and has sense control may see something, may feel some kind of angry way towards that, but then can ask themselves, will this be beneficial if I intervene? So this is something practical that we should learn how to do, is employ our anger when necessary and restrain it when it's detrimental. Because most of the time when we get angry, as conditioned souls, we simply make a fool out of ourselves. As we have practical experience, we simply yell, run our mouth, this and that, and then later we think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But if we control our senses, we feel like running our mouth, yelling, we control our senses, we just take a deep breath, step away, we can think later, oh, I'm so glad I didn't do that. So, anyways, as devotees practicing sadhakas, we should work to control our anger and only use it in ways which are beneficial and not detrimental. It is to be concluded that while conceiving a child, one's mind must be very sober and devotional. For this purpose, the Garbhadhana Samskara is recommended in the Vedic scriptures. So, sex can be employed as a service, as anything can be employed as a service. Obviously, sex is dangerous in the sense that we can start thinking we're the body, start to have material enjoyment, start to think oneself the enjoyer. So sex is a dangerous service, but nonetheless it's necessary for many people to perform as a rite of purification. And one should do so through the Garbhadhan Samskara. The word Garbhadhan literally means sex. Garbha, womb, Dana, deposit. So Garbhadhan Samskara is conceiving a child for the purpose of performing a sacrifice. So samskara, it makes a heavy impression on our mind. There's all sorts of samskaras to be performed in life. Like the child is given a name at the beginning of life. There's the ear piercing ceremony, hair cutting, all sorts of ceremonies. And we take diksha, initiation. So these samskaras, they have a powerful impact in our minds, in our memory. It helps us establish, this is my purpose for doing this activity. Sex shouldn't simply be something you do whimsically in the evening, as Diti and Kashyapa did, but it should be something planned with thorough intention, thorough thought, meditation, very determinate reasons. You're being very determined to perform a specific duty and function for doing an activity. So for this reason, the Garbhadan Samskara is performed. That sex isn't just some whimsical thing that you do for your own enjoyment, but this is like, first you chant a lot of rounds. This is like an austerity that you're doing for Krishna. And in fact, I spoke to one devotee once and he said by the time he was done chanting his 64 rounds that day, he didn't even feel like having sex. So that should be the process of the Garbhadan Samskara, is that we're not doing it for our sense enjoyment, but we're doing it as a service, as a sacrifice to Krishna. Actually, having a family, taking children into this world, having a wife, big austerity. For a man, it's like maybe the biggest austerity, actually. I've heard. Brahmachari life is so easy, right? So this is a very big austerity, is to have a family, actually. But men who need to get married, who want to get married, should do so responsibly and perform the required samskaras so that it can really be established in their minds that this is a devotional thing. This is for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. This is not for my own sense gratification. The conditions of conception are to be carefully studied. This is a very great science. So not only should we study how to conceive, how to bring children into this world properly, but in one sense, the bigger thing to learn is how to raise children in this world, because Garbhadan Samskara lasts one day, but then you have children, and that lasts at least 18 years for you. Should be longer, because we want to have connected families where the child just doesn't run off after 18 years, but the families should stay together. The parents should have influence, should teach throughout the duration of their kids' lives, should help them when they have kids. But then in the beginning of the life of one's child, it's important to know how to discipline them, how to raise them, how to engage them in services, how to teach them how to do various activities related to their varna. So this is very important. It's a very important science to know. And people in the modern age, they're also very keen on learning this science. I know my mother, when she was raising me and my siblings, she would read all these books, how to properly raise a child. But of course, all these ideas are mental speculations, just concocted. And I personally know one parent who read a lot of these kind of books, back in Karmi life, that is. One parent read a lot of these books, how to raise children properly, how to discipline children, how to make successful grown adults. But this person's children just became complete, useless people, practically speaking, not really knowing how to do anything practical, not getting good grades in school, just completely spontaneous children. Because what these people teach actually is that you should listen to your child. Your child is a creative genius. All children are geniuses, creatively speaking. You see that painting? You see that painting? Would you think of putting those colors together? No. They say you listen to your child. Your child is a creative genius. Because the more and more you grow up, you get stuck in your ways and you become dumb. There's this, neuroplasticity. It's phenomenon in psychology. When the child's young, their minds are very, moldable. They're very fluid. Their neural pathways are very fluid. They can go all sorts of ways. Similarly, when people take psychedelic drugs, it makes the neural pathways super fluent. So you can start to taste colors and see tastes, all sorts of, the neurons just go all sorts of crazy ways. So that's how children work. People see this as a great quality. They want to learn from children and take psychedelic drugs. They can learn how to be artists, and you see all the sorts of weird fashions and arts that go around nowadays. And this is the way people are desiring to exist in this like totally just wacko state of consciousness. You can be with any gender you want. You can create your own gender. Be like a kid, your inner child. The children, they have neuroplasticity, but adults wear a suit and tie. People nowadays, they look down on being squares, being like straightforward kind of people. But actually, children, you see them practically, they're practically useless by nature. They don't know how to do anything because they don't have a strong mind. They don't have, the neural pathways, they exist for a reason in a certain way so that you could do something efficiently. Because now you just wreck the whole thing, and then you have neuroplasticity, So when people mature, they're supposed to be able to do things well. Like when people grow into their varna, by the time they're 9 years old even, they can, a cloth weaver can weave cloth perfectly by the time they're 9 years old, that those neural pathways are just completely solid. But this whole like artistic thing of just wrecking your brain and being an artist, it just completely destroys your brain. You become autistic, yeah. Anyways, this is just a little insight of mine into the way children are thought to be raised nowadays. Is let them do what they want, let them be free. But if you don't discipline the child, if you don't teach them to do something practical, if you don't push them in a particular direction, they just become useless. They just become sporadic and whimsical, just live like animals, just have sex, sense gratification. So anyways, back to, I was saying that, parents, they study all these sorts of books, how to raise the children. And we could see the effect on the way the world's going. But actually, the traditional way of raising children that is in Vedic society is the best way to do it. And we've seen practically. ISKCON Salem, they're raising very nice children that speak Sanskrit, no shlokas. They can compose shlokas, these kids. They're expert on the instruments. They're complete, and what to speak of that? I mean, I know one 17-year-old devotee in ISKCON Bhimavaram, Sri Rag Prabhu. He grew up a devotee like that. 17 years old, head kitchen of the ISKCON temple. Cooks like 2,000 people, no problem. Head cook, 17 years old. So this is the result of training a child rightly. Not letting them just do whatever they want. They should be trained properly, according to their inclination and qualification, to their propensities. But and then in Kormagram, you have these little kids, they're herding bulls. I saw one little boy, he just slapped a bull because the bull took the carrot when he wasn't supposed to. There's a bull completely can kill. Anyways, it's very impressive what children can do if they're trained properly. More impressive than what your average adult can do in modern society. So, those who are begetting children should do so properly, and they should learn how to train the children properly. First of all, by being good examples themselves. You cannot raise a good child if you're a big space out and in the mode of ignorance all the time. It's scientific, your child will not be good. So you need to get on top of your stuff if you want to have a child. You need to get on top of your mind, sense control, really be sober and intelligent. And because this is actually a very important thing. In our farm communities, the children, they're like the future. They're the future here. So this is very important service. Should be done with intelligence. It should be done with patience, determination, and enthusiasm also. So we can now discuss if anybody has any comments, corrections, or questions. Yeah.
One point that devotees seem to miss is, while they give importance to Garbhadhan Samskar, or some of them do, I've heard, for instance, devotees say, well, I did the Garbhadhan Samskar and still the child was not a devotee. It also depends on how you live your life before this. Like you made that point towards the very end. But the child is going to be a combination of the natures of the husband and the wife. It is not going to be anything else. To be a combination, as to some degree, there will even be the influence of the natures of the grandparents. This is what it is. Many times in families, they will note, the son is like the grandfather. So similarities between the grandfather, the grandmother with the child. So of course, the mother and father's natures are more prominently present, which means, and Garbhadan Samskar is important because it plays a huge role in what nature of the parents gets transmitted to the majority degree into the child. But the other natures will also get transmitted because it is a chemical. It is a chemical secretion of the mother and father, and the modes of material nature predominant in those bodies will result in the similar type of secretion. Nothing else is going to come. It's not going to come somewhere from ether. Which is why it's very important for especially men to learn to be gurus. It's the duty of men. It's the whole subject matter. But all men have to be gurus. Whether you choose to be guru to many disciples, or you choose to be guru to your wife and children, that's the limit of the choice. That's it. Guru means you have to know how to curb anarthas. You have to teach that also by personal example, achar and prachar. Because it is our nature or the natures that will be born in the form of the child. If you have not cultivated how to control your own nature, if you haven't identified how to control one's anarthas or purify oneself or better one's nature, you will not learn how to better the child either. It has a lot, in fact, and this is how Krishna's amazing system works in purifying the living entity eventually to help him go back home, back to Godhead. Because you have to start taking responsibility over this child. It's helpful. It's easier. Easier meaning like it's easier to want to deal with it in the sense because there is the bodily attachment that arises in the form of children versus, say, disciples, it's really hard for a guru to show affection to one's disciples, and the disciples are all kinds of people from all kinds of natures and all kinds of problems. The guru to still want to show affection, it requires a very high degree of spiritual advancement and compassion. Easier when it's one's child and one's wife, because there is some bodily attachment there. But the principle of the guru doesn't really change. And but the man who never learns to be a guru because he was never a proper disciple has wasted his human form of life, and will face a lot of problems in his own life, and will also create problems for a lot of other people around him. So, this all goes completely against, but this is all ties into the concept of dharma and duty, which is so heavily emphasized, which is very different to the modern conception of just enjoy and live one's life for one's pleasure, and irresponsibly. Or even if people take responsibility, they only consider that responsibility for a very limited period of time. But in Vedic culture, the responsibility only increases as one ages, and never decreases, never ever decreases. Never. In fact, your least amount of responsibility is actually when one is a brahmachari. Then more responsibility as grihastha. Even if the brahmachari lasts for longer, he also develops responsibility, because as a senior brahmachari, he becomes a leader of his own, in his own regard. People start to look up to him. He's just the younger brahmachari who has not much responsibility. Or like Gurukul boys, Grihastha more responsible. Vanaprastha even more. Sannyasi is the most responsible. It never ends.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that the point you made about before you become a guru, you have to be a good disciple, that emphasizes the importance of varnashram, particularly being a brahmachari before you're a grihastha. Very important that you get training under your guru or under your shiksha guru how to be a disciple. And therefore, you can become a guru if you're a disciple. Does anybody have anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
I remember like a year ago, Guru Maharaj gave a class. He was speaking about this topic about anger, and he was saying that dealing with devotees, you can be angry with them as much as you need to be, but when it's important about anger is that crucially you shouldn't hold a grudge. You shouldn't be holding grudges, because then it makes the heart very hard, and it's very a big impediment to your devotional service actually. So you can be angry, but you shouldn't go. He said that you should be angry and then that's it, give it up. But you shouldn't have a grudge.
As required, yeah. Sense control, employing it in Krishna's service.
Yeah, and then another thing is you were saying about these kids who that the parents should agree with the children, that you should listen to your children or something like this. But naturally you see that usually those parents who follow that rule, usually like they don't discipline the children. So naturally in Vedic culture you're supposed to discipline, like Krishna, he got disciplined by Mother Yashoda. So these kids who usually don't become disciplined, they become misbehaved and very proud, and then that leads to like kamakam bhav basically. But because they think they could just do whatever they want, and then they have a sense of like they have that Ishvara bhav, thinking that they're better than their parents actually.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Guru Maharaj makes the point that the biggest contribution of Gen Z in the world today is that they complain a lot. The biggest contribution of Gen Z today is they complain a lot. They think they're pretty good at complaining. That was a really amazing point.
Charadeshna Prabhu.
It does have ghee on it. Yeah, I can go. That's okay. Yes. I thought it was interesting, the point that Giri was elaborating on, and the point that you made about these parents who subscribe to the idea of just doing whatever the kid wants.
There's some optimistic idea. They'll come up with the cure to cancer if you let them think.
I've never heard that. That's pretty far out.
They'll come up with a green energy solution. This is like the way they kind of
push that.
Yeah. Be creative.
The possibilities are endless. I mean,
we're gonna need something way out of the box to fix all our crap.
Another thing I remember hearing, my parents made this very clear to me that they're not my friend, but you would hear like, oh yeah, be your parents should you should be your children's friend. Like, oh, you should be your friend. I mean, be their friend, and you would see so many different practical implementations of that. But like, I remember having different peers in like school, and you would see that like those parents were generally like those kids' friends, and like they were like looked at like, oh, like yeah, your parents are like so cool, like they let them parties and like
I know what you're
they
talking
would
about.
get them all different types of whatever substances. Whatever.
Facilitate all their
Those
sense
kids were like
gratification.
really really cool in school, and then immediately like plummeted like pretty much afterwards. Like they peaked very early.
High school's the peak, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like after that, it's because they don't have actually like any value. Like they don't offer anything aside from just like some enjoyment for some of these other players and whatnot.
Chanakya gives the advice that you should, discipline your child to the age of 15 and then be his friend.
Then be his friend.
It's like
So-
from like 0 to like 5. You have to
Yeah.
be like soft with them.
And then
From
5 to,
it's
yeah, there's 3 stages.
Yeah.
I forgot the first one, but especially between 5 and
First is
15.
very affectionate.
Yeah, very physical, whatever.
Second is only chastising.
That's not even.
And then after that, be his friend.
Well, Prabhupada said like soft, and you tighten up a little bit, and then from like 12 to 15, you're like fierce as like a lion or something. Prabhupada, in that Grahasta book you gave me, Prabhupada says like that. Something to him. But in this Grahasta book, Prabhupada said before you like, first you're affectionate, then you tighten up a little bit, and then from like a few years to 15, he says it's fierce as a lion or it's fierce as a tiger.
Could you see the other end
And then
also?
after
If their parents who are too tight, after a certain age, the kids lose faith in them because, I'm becoming a man, you're controlling me, and then they go away. So one has to understand, like, okay, all right, this is the age, this is, so one has to judge as they grow up. Okay, now he's kind of like, he needs a little more. I've trained him enough to give him that, like, little bit of freedom to act, and so that he doesn't feel like, the kids don't feel like they're just, that was the important point. Who was making that? Oh, we're talking to a few comedians, and they were saying that the young people do need to have that level of ability to exercise their, their youthful nature
Yeah.
to go out and do something for the movement. So that needs to be given to them. Not that all the old people, oh no, you're too young. So we see that in the movement also. Like older devotees just, oh, you're too young, you can't do anything. So there's needs to be a balance of, like you're saying, that to actually discipline the child, but discipline it for a certain amount of time. You discipline him for too long, you lose him. So you give him freedom after your discipline because you should have trained him properly by then. And so that's just the point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we have to
I had
end.
experience when I was 15. My dad was still trying to whoop me, and that's when I decided
It was.
to leave the house.
I think it wasn't until
I hated
18.
him. I hated him. I left the
Like, I
house.
still got yelled at it
Because he was still trying to discipline me like I was like 10. And it just didn't work. It just doesn't work. I think all of us have experience of that.
Oh wait, I noticed this whole like in the West, growing up
Put
in
your mic up to your mouth.
growing up in Krishna consciousness in the West, like you didn't really hear about Garbhadan samskara ceremonies or like any of like the proper way to raise kids because most of us were sent to like karmi schools. You're exposed to all these different things, and it's pretty rare to see at least kids my age take it seriously, let alone try to follow Vedic culture.
Yeah.
It's actually a very sad reality.
Yeah.
And it's just so many kids who don't know what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You and Nima.
What about Janardhan?
Oh, Janardhan, he's been on. He's already.
Yeah, it's our.
Okay.
He grew up in Dallas.
So many devotees here in our group are from devotee background.
I'm telling you,
His parents are initiated, his grandmother is also initiated.
my grandma was not initiated.
Yes, his cousins are initiated.
Now what's up with Sharif?
He had the whole Garbhadan sanskara.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, we can end here. We can continue talking.
Ravana.
We can take prasadam and talk.
Okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyashta kripasindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
You know my Bro, no, because Yeah. And I was like within 4